I have 3 experiences for you today. Sit back, relax, and enjoy. And to all of you who celebrate Thanksgiving, happy Thanksgiving. Many years ago, I OD'd. Here is the story. I remember being pulled out of my body into the whiteness, and it was very confusing. I didn't know where I was or how I got there, and I didn't have any shape or body mass. I was just there. It was like I was in some sort of purgatory, and I was waiting for something. I had an eerie feeling of emptiness and sadness. I looked over and saw what looked like the guy who played the wizard in The Wizard of Oz, and he was behind a curtain, turning a wheel of some sort. He looked at me, stopped what he was doing, and made the shush sign with his finger. Then he went on turning the wheel. In an instant, I was somewhere else. It's weird and hard to explain, but I saw nobody, yet I could feel the presence of my grandmother and my great-aunt. I legit didn't see anyone, I just felt them. It was at this point that I realized or thought, oh no, I'm dead. Then at that moment, I was pulled into another vortex which landed me in a new dimension. I remember arriving at what seemed like some sort of big event, almost like walking into a packed football arena on an NFL game day. A roar could be heard in the background. All my friends and family, both alive and deceased, and all these familiar faces were there. I was walking toward what looked like an old Greek Colosseum. Everyone was cheering and happy, but they didn't even notice me. Suddenly, someone turned and looked at me and had an absolute deer-in-headlights look on their face. I can't remember who it was, but it was definitely someone I knew or had seen before. I instantly got the feeling that I was not supposed to be there. I watched as what almost seemed like a concert or a sporting event came to a complete halt, and everyone turned and looked at me. Everything stopped instantly. I didn't know what to do, but again, I had an intense feeling that I was not supposed to be there, and that I was seeing something I wasn't supposed to see. It was at this point that I heard and saw people talking and saying my name. Someone yelled out to my grandmother for her to come forward. It was almost as if I was Jim Carrey in the movie The Truman Show. It was as if everyone throughout my life was there, and they were going to welcome me to what I thought or assumed was going to be heaven, but not yet. There was this lingering feeling that I had come too soon. Maybe they were calling to my grandmother because I needed someone familiar to send me back to where I came from, so it wouldn't scare me as much. However, I was terrified, and I didn't know what was real and what was fake. One of the most intense parts of it was that nobody spoke. It was just known already in my head what they were saying, and me back. After what felt like a strong feeling of rejection, and what I thought was them trying to get my grandmother to come forward for some reason, I literally just ran away, desperately trying to get to somewhere else. It was at this point that I had the first flash of my neighbor's front lawn. I slowly started to come to, and people were all around me. The police and ambulance were on the scene, and everyone was just looking at me like they saw a ghost. I asked if I was dead, and the EMT smiled and said, "Not anymore." That does it for our first experience. Moving on to our second experience. I became very ill with spinal meningitis when I was 19 years old. I was in a coma for 5 days. I was told that the priest came in to read me my last rites, as I was unresponsive and dying. This is what I remember. I felt conscious, but it wasn't as part of my known reality. I felt wonderful and such great peace. I had no sense of a body and no thought that I was in a weird state. It was just natural. I didn't think about anyone or anything except for the beautiful way I felt in the moment. It seemed like I was just floating around without any form in an expansive reality where everything was the same thing, all connected. I was just part of everything. I didn't really have a sense of me, I think. I was everything, and everything was me. There was just one. I did not have any thoughts about my real life or any sense of going back there. It was wonderful. Then, in the deep recess of my consciousness, I heard my name. I didn't pay any attention to it or do anything. I just continued to enjoy the freeness I felt. Then I heard it again, a little louder, and thought, "What is that?" Then I heard it again and made out the sound of my mother's voice calling my name. I didn't really want to hear it because I wanted to stay where I was. But then I heard her say, "Sharon, Alfie needs you so much." Alfie was my baby. He was 8 months old. I totally forgot I had a baby. But then, after hearing my mother's voice say his name a few times, I was like, "Oh my God, Alfie, I have to go back." Then, right after I said that, I felt a huge swoosh, like being sucked by a vacuum, and I was sucked back into my body. I opened my eyes and turned my head toward the voice. My mother was sitting next to my hospital bed. She started crying. I'd chosen to go back. I always remember the beautiful way I felt. It has never left me, or the oneness I feel with all of creation. That does it for our second experience. Moving along to our final experience. That summer, when I was 21 years old, I went with several friends to somewhere in Jinshan Bay in Taipei to swim and barbecue. We are a group of boys and girls. Immediately after we had arrived at our destination, everybody was setting up the barbecue by the creek. Right there, one of the boys suggested that we go swimming in the creek first. However, I thought we should grill the meat first and then go for a swim afterward, but the majority of the boys had gone already, so I thought as a boy I should go for it too. Thus, I went along. There were 2 girls by the grill to prepare the barbecue. I felt sorry for them, though. I wished I had not gone swimming. However, it turned out to be a memorable experience that I could never forget. I did not know how to swim. I could only play in the water, let alone swim. Once everyone was in the water, they all showed off their swimming skills such as breaststroke, supine, and silent swimming. Some of them would even go further to climb up on the rocks and then jump off it. I knew I could not swim, so I stayed in the shallow water side. However, they went even further into the deep water, and I was catching up with them for competition's sake. But the further I swam, the more I was intimidated. At this moment, I could not reach the bottom of the water, and it was too late to turn back. The rush of the water brought me down deeper into the water. I thought I was doomed this time. The water kept bringing me deep down. I fought to swim against the current upward, but I was drowned by the water. I could not swim out of it to reach the surface. As I struggled in the water for a while, I heard my heartbeat become slower and slower. It was so quiet in the water that you could hear your heartbeat. Momentarily, right after the last heartbeat, I was sucked upward by a force, or in another word, it was like being squeezed out of it. I found out I was floating approximately 1 to 2 floors of a high-rise building above the water. That instant, I was perplexed. I found myself having no body floating. Immediately, I felt strange how this happened, that I was bodiless and feeling lightweight. While I was floating up in the air, I saw 2 of my classmates on the surface. The way I watched them was like zooming in on a camera. There was something in the water that looked like it was me. Feeling unsure as I thought, then I realized that I had died. Right at this moment, my surroundings turned pitch dark, and a light appeared in front of me. It seemed like a tunnel, which was the entrance of reincarnation in the spiritual world. I was pushed forwards by a force. The whole process felt weightless. While I looked at my right hand, it was hand-shaped except for the edges of it were illuminated with transparent blue light. I thought I must have died. I could feel a sheet of soft, white surroundings in this realm. There were ancient Chinese palace stairs where on top of it was a bronze mirror, and its size was bigger than the TV cabinet. The edge of the copper mirror was decorated with a flower pattern in a Chinese palace style. There was a force that pushed me in front of this mirror and then put me down. I watched myself from the mirror, and I saw myself had a head-shaped image illuminated with bright blue light. Then, the bronze mirror projected my life from young to adulthood at a super high speed, which was playing hundreds to thousands of my life experiences in about 1 to 2 seconds. When my life review was completed, that force lifted me, detoured the bronze mirror, and continued on forwarding. While I was moving forward, a picture appeared behind my head. It was a lady with a black dress lying on her stomach on a rock by the creek, crying, sobbing. As the force pushed me forwards further, the louder the lady crying in the picture. I could feel that this picture tried to tell me, "Are you sure you won't regret it?" And I knew that once I passed the bright light, then I could never come back anymore. So I was telling myself, no, if I left, my parents would be weeping and sad. No, I have to come back. Next, I made a left turn and broke away from that force. I looked back and found out it was the dark tunnel that I had entered previously. In a flash, a force sucked me over. I was back and was able to feel the flesh again. However, I was still at the bottom of the water. I thought as for me, It was not an easy journey to come back to the earth, so I would not want to go back there again. Surprisingly, I never knew how I had learned to tread water, but since I continued doing so, I finally reached the surface. Once I was on top of the water, my classmates seemed to notice that I was drowning, and they pushed me from the deep water to the shallow water. Eventually, I was on shore. I would like to share with more people. The above contents are all true and not superstition, my own experience. That does it for today's video. As always, let me know what you thought in the comments below.